What is up? What is up, Miss Village? How are y'all doing? I am doing quite fine, I must say, quite fine. Anyway, so yeah, this is our very first roundtable. And basically, what that means is, we've Facebook Live has always been a big part of what I've been doing because connection to my fans is everything. None of this is possible without you guys. I mean, literally. Shane Davenport is the first one here. Appreciate you. Mm. Yes, I drink coffee now, with my pinky out. So anyway, I thought it'd be fun to sort of, in addition to giving you guys updates, which I absolutely will do, I thought it'd be really fun to sort of have a convo about various topics, and we would do like some fun, silly stuff, and we would maybe like get into some like more serious stuff and just like some informative things. I feel like, and honestly, this is sort of just coming from the fact that the Miss Village is just filled with like really interesting people from all different walks of life, right? Like we've got janitors, we've got judges, we've got left, we've got right, we've got international, we've got national, we've got old, the dude with the samurai, the old Marine, badass. He's my number one draft pick. We've got young kids too. And I thought it'd be really cool if we started. I'm glad the books brought you together. I'm glad that I've been able to sort of like connect with all of you. But I thought it'd be really fun to sort of, draw on some of that and you guys could connect together as well. So that's what this is all about. Anyway, so yeah, this is the very first Miss Village Roundtable. We are going to be going over a topic of the best sword fights, where we've had some really cool sort of info already. And I want to start out with da, 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 a good one. I made a little Word document here. Okay, so first of all, anything Afro Samurai is absolutely, absolutely cool. Jay Browse, I'm glad you love the shirt. Flynn's Arcade, old school. You cannot get better than Tron. I even like the remake because you said you're messing with my Zen thing. I love that Jeff Bridges did. Anyway, so, oh, and we have someone with a name that is not English, which is very cool. So, whatever that means, glad you're here. I think you know who you're talking to. And also, let me say, as I often do, the Miss Village was just me and all of LitRPG in general was just me and a bunch of dudes farting for way too long. So it is wonderful to have you women here, and feel free to fart. So that is also fine. So anyway, not the number one sword fight scene, but definitely, definitely, definitely Afro Samurai. If you guys have never checked it out, okay, it's got Samuel Jackson voiceover. It must for to be something called Afro Samurai, obviously. But it is just such amazing old school, almost like Ninja Scroll style violence. It is awesome. I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely recommend it. Jeremiah Field, I'm glad you noticed the fresh cut. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I thank you for guys for noticing there's less space on my face. I am now currently down, God, what is it? 37 pounds, which feels good. And we can get into all that later. Okay, so Afro Samurai is awesome. Okay, so I definitely recommend checking that out. It's badass. Okay, let's go to the number one draft pick for a lot of people that are my age. I am 41, looking sexy as hell. And I feel like a lot of us are talking about Princess Bride, right? Princess Bride is amazing. Buttercup, as you wish. Uh, he's only mostly dead. All right. Shout out to Billy Crystal, who does not get enough love for Miracle Max in that movie. Absolutely awesome. Sorry. So Princess Bride is good. I've rewatched it recently. I don't know if you guys have. It, it has all of the love and nostalgia of youth, and it still definitely holds up. But it is, I'm sorry, it is not the greatest sword fight scene of all time. I mean, the fact that like they had sort of like Amy Lou Retton spin thing was admittedly awesome. The fact that you can see the springboard now very clearly because we have more sword knives, a little bit less so. But what really, really tied Princess Bride together, in my humble opinion, is the banter. It's like I hate waiting. Oh, this is good. Well, take your time. That it like Mandy Patinkin was just, I mean, just and still is. Shout out to Homeland. Just a treasure. Like it's just amazing. So yeah, Princess Bride obviously is where we're gonna start. But I really really think that like it's just not the best in my opinion. Feel free to disagree and want to burn me at the stake. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so Jacob Grove says nothing is worse than when people see you lose weight and they're like, you can really see it in your face. It always makes me feel like how big was my fucking head? So it's actually funny. All right, so I've mentioned this before. I'm actually on. This is partly because I've been working really hard at it. You guys know I've been on a journey for whatever. But the reason I've been able to drop this weight is for because I started on the weight loss drug Mounjaro. All right, I want to be very, very clear, and mostly for just legal purposes. Like, I am a physician. This is not me recommending this to you as a physician. This is just me sharing my personal journey. Everything a doctor offers you, including a glass of water, is not without risk. You have to weigh it for yourself. But for me, I had to admit I am an addict to sugar, to high fructose corn syrup. It's not a joke. There's countless studies out there. You can easily find them on YouTube about the pathways. We all know that we're addicted. Um, and I'm addicted to it. And what this really feels like, the medication, it feels like a nicotine patch for food. For the first time in at least probably a decade for me, I feel like I'm in charge of my cravings. And so like I'm just eating less. It's making me feel better. It's making it easier to run. Da da da. But anyway, yeah. So that's on that. But thank you so much. Oh, but the reason I brought that up is that the biggest complaint of people that are on this medication is that they get something called Ozempic face, which is in the same class of medication. They're like, I don't like the way my face looks, and it's really fucked up because there are medications that like give you certain like facial things, like even pregnancy can give you this faces kind of thing. But Ozempic face is just your face. We all look younger when we're fatter, so it's not really a complaint. But anyway, all that being said, all right. So number two that I'm going to mention, this is not in order ranking, Yoda fight scene in episode 3. Okay, it's just awesome. Okay, I mean, seeing Yoda flipping around, doing it all with the Force, going head to head with Palpatine. I feel like he should have been able to kick Palpatine's ass based on what I was seeing personally. It was amazing. It's an awesome fight scene. And then at the end, when he's moving on the crutch again, and you realize that was all Force empowerment. Amazing, amazing. Okay, so all right. So some of you guys wrote in before, and I think these are some of these really good. All right, so Clayton Boyd mentioned Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Obviously, one of the greatest movies and fight scenes of all time. There's so many things you can pick from in there. The beauty of, and I don't remember actors' names a lot. The beauty of the main male character and the younger woman fighting on the treetops is just gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in a movie. It's amazing. But honestly, I feel like the best fight scene in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is the two main female leads when they are in the dojo, and the younger one's using Green Dragon. The other one is just really exemplifying the different ways that various like weapons can be used. It's almost not montage isn't the word. It's like an exhibition of the different like fighting styles. And even like the appearance of the Daigutan at the end was really awesome. I just think so. All right, so Jamie Holland, I'm glad that you mentioned Highlander because nobody mentioned Highlander on the comments before, and definitely we need to talk about it. All right, so Evgeny Fridland, Neo versus Morpheus, yeah, not a fight scene, not a sword fight, okay? And I will accept any bladed weapon, but no, so we can't do that. All right. So Clayton Boyd also gave an amazing shout out that actually I hadn't thought of, but definitely needs to be on the list. Mask of Zorro with Antonio Banderas. Okay, so first of all, Catherine Zeta-Zone's sword fight, Uchi Mama. I'm not made out of wood here, people. Yeah, they got me. Amazing, super hot, super sexy. Their beautiful Latin skin coming together which is an amazing thing. But the best fight scene, I think, in that, and then again, shout out to Anthony Hopkins, Sir Anthony Hopkins, you're a treasure. But Antonio Banderas, when he's fighting the entire garrison, and like right when he's like first starting to become Zorro, is just this amazing fight scene. All right, so just the back and forth, the spins, all the like the mistakes he made, the way he takes down the big dude by just slamming the cannonballs in his face, and then on the piece de resistance at the end when he does a Calvin and Hobbes climb out of the pile and he looks over and he lights the the cannon and goes, is still one of the funniest scenes of all time. Is absolutely awesome. I got to give a shout out to that. So Clayton Boyd, you came correct. I appreciate it. All right. Third one I want to talk about, slightly deeper cut. First Night. It's got Sean Connery. I can't remember the other guy. He's very famous. But basically, it's a take on the Arthurian legend, right? I remember that from my childhood as being this amazing fight scene and stuff that he's doing. I rewatched it Yeah, no, he just does this with the sword. It's not in any way impressive at all about that. But I still give credit where credit's due because as a kid, and I even remember adults talking about it afterwards, um, the way that they presented his simplistic moves with the sword really sort of sold it. It was an interesting kind of thing because obviously Lancelot is arguably supposed to be the greatest swordsman in all of Western literature, depending on how you go in the paint. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think it was really a beautiful and well done kind of kind of movie. All right, so I'm gonna go back to another fan mention. So Cerberus Prime, that's his Christian name. Mm, talk about the end of Equilibrium. I could not have disagreed more. Like Equilibrium, if you have not seen it, you guys should be writing some of this down. Is one of the best cult classics out there. It is kung fu fighting with guns, and they are the only one, including the Matrix, who ever really, really crushed it. It was awesome. And the sword fight scene at the end is fine, but compared to what is his name? He played Batman. Christian Bale was doing earlier in the movie with like the guns and sort of the things that he was getting done. Because the whole point is that they've come up with gun katas. They've analyzed like millions of gun battles, and they found statistical probabilities that if you move your body in certain ways, then you increase your dodge by like 84%. You increase. I mean, basically, it's a lit RPG. It's amazing. Um, and so like the sword scene at the end is very short, and it is. I will say that it has one of the best sword deaths ever. So he's fighting Christian Bale is fighting Tay Diggs, which I mean, come on. And he just absolutely executes him. But he cuts with his sword. He cuts up and through, and it's so sharp because normally you see like the cut through the neck and they don't realize the force, but you never really see cut through this way, just like perfectly vertically. And so Tay Diggs has enough time to like Tay Diggy it, like straighten his tie or something like that before the entire front of his face goes. So that is super cool. I would agree. All right. So John Calver's asking, what about John Wick? This does not belong in a sword fight. Now, I will say John Wick probably has the best knife throwing scene I've ever seen. Okay, in John Wick 2, yeah, the knife fighting scene is the best. So I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely agree with think that belongs in there. But it's not really it's a knife throwing scene. So I don't necessarily know if it belongs in like a discussion about sword fighting or like bladed hand to hand, right? Because it's more of a distance thing, even though it's short distance. But anyway, I mean, it is an awesome, awesome scene. Okay, I've seen this notice a couple of times. I'm going to give a shout out to Josh McGriff, who put it out there. Hero with Jet Li, the mind battle that they have set to, I don't know, I guess like some old dude playing Nirvana on his Chinese flute. Um, it was amazing. It's everything that you ever wanted in a fast moving kung fu fighting scene. All the twirls, all the spins, all of the like, they're thinking 5 moves ahead. They pay attention to the fact that like when the swords lock, like the fact that there's going to be reverberation, they lean into the reverberation and do all that. Like it's amazing, and the fact that it's so crisp in a way that only really Jet Li delivers, and they switch it to black and white. It is by far one of the greatest sword fight scenes of all time, but it is still not make it into the top three for me personally. I will say. All right, so Desanjay Onage is mentioning Zatoichi. I absolutely agree that needs to get in there too. Okay, so all right, Troy. All right, so Bradley McDonald is mentioning Troy, Hector versus Achilles. It is obviously very good. Brad Pitt as Achilles does most of the heavy lifting. And honestly, while that was a very good, technically proficient sort of sword scene, I feel like when Brad Pitt is just sort of shining in that movie by himself, like even the very first one where he's like the best fighters from both, and he's running at the big dude and just like jumps past him because he's so quick, and then slices his sword in and out that you don't even necessarily know what happened, but you realize that, oh my god, he cut through a lung and he cut through the heart and he cut through whatever. Like he's really sick and smooth with it. So I definitely feel like that has some of the best battle scenes, and it is very good. But it was never like their fight was great. It didn't had that emotional sort of leap that to make me think that it gets into the top three personally. All right. I do want to talk about one that I haven't really seen mentioned here, but was mentioned several times in comments before. Rob Roy. Okay, so Liam Neeson is a big dude. I think you guys probably got that in Taken, but he was always a big dude. And honestly, he just played this thug for most of the early part of his career, where he played a dummy who would just beat people up because he's just a really big dude. Also, Ben Affleck is 6'4". Did you guys know that? He is also a big dude. Anyway, so Rob Roy is like the fight scene at the end of Rob Roy. I think is amazing because you've got Tim Roth, who I will mention next on for one of mine in my list because Tim Roth is one of the greatest actors that exists in my opinion. And he just plays this like dandy, like all perfumed with the frilly whatever, but he's a good swordsman, and it really just sort of shows like the importance of skill versus brawn. Like in the books, we have like barbarians that have special like powers and stuff like that, and like obviously, and if you don't really know what you're doing, a bigger dude is going to beat up a smaller dude, and a bigger dude will most likely will even beat up a skilled smaller dude if they don't have a weapon, depending on how big that dude is. Okay, I mean, like basically they're just going to win. But with something like a sword and the fact that it only takes like a couple ounces of pressure to pierce the human body and it's well made, yeah, you're gonna get owned. You're gonna get absolutely owned. And even if you like rush at the guy, he's just gonna let you fall on the sword and then move out of your way. I mean, like the human body is malleable. So I think it was amazing there. But honestly, obviously, Tim Roth had the monologue. I feel like if I was going to run a bad guy camp, every third day would be about don't monologue. I mean, like just quit monologuing. Kill the dude, and then you can talk as much shit as you want. He's like, I'm going to talk shit for the rest of the day about a bunch of dudes I killed. They can't do anything because they're already dead. So, but I think it was a really great scene, and obviously, like the bloodletting, whatever, was awesome. So I'm going to give it to that. So going back to what is it, Tim Roth again, the guy that was the dandy in Rob Roy. I'm going to go to one of the ones that almost made it in the top three for me, and that is The Musketeer. There's been a lot of different Musketeer movies. This is The Musketeer. It's actually really hard to find. I was trying to find one recently. But it's got Tim Roth as, I don't remember who, the main bad guy, not like the cardinal, but his main like thug. And like he's just so sick with it as far as like his dialogue and whatever. It's one of the greatest lines of all time where he's threatening to kill this child. And the queen is like, is there no mercy in your heart? And he goes, no mercy, no heart. Like, it's just such a sick follow-up. I don't even have a heart. But anyway, that the Musketeer, like the main guy that's playing D'Artagnan, they sort of have him, and never explain why, have him, he's been trained throughout life to be the best swordsman, but he incorporates a lot of Eastern fighting styles. There's a great scene in there where he's fighting a bunch of guardsmen, basically using a rope as a weapon with a knot at the end, something that you almost never see in Western literature. And their fight scene at the end involves sliding up and down ladders in just a way that's really, really sick. So that is an awesome, awesome movie if you guys get a chance to check it out. All right, so going back to, all right, so Zach Lathan mentioned Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul. Yeah, I mean, I love lightsabers. I want the Mist Village to have lightsabers. I want me to have lightsabers. Lightsabers are awesome. The fight scene was okay. I mean, it certainly wasn't even ranking up in the top lightsaber battles in my opinion. And honestly, I feel like the best lightsaber battles, for honest other reasons, are probably in the animated sort of shorts that sort of come out. But I will say that the rematchup of old Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul much later in life was amazing, and just sort of the build-up and the approach. Like, there wasn't a lot of sword fighting. It was a very, very, very short battle, but it sort of just showed like the lifelong enmity between these two people. And it, like the ending where, I mean, like Darth Maul again is monologuing, but he's pre-monologuing, so I'll give him that. And just sort of talking about how he's trained and all the things that he's gone through and all the people that he's killed, all leading up to this one moment where he's found Obi-Wan just sort of sitting in the sand, and he's like, well, let's do this. And Obi-Wan just owns him. I mean, he just like, it's over in one stroke, in the way that you very much want like the old samurai who has just who has found like the balance between his swordsmanship and his development of his soul, and the fact that it takes him somewhere transcendental. That was awesome. That was awesome. I heavily recommend checking it out on YouTube. All right, again, I'm going to say anything Afro Samurai. If you haven't seen it yet, you have to watch Afro Samurai. That is awesome. Let's see. Okay, so Paul Westall, Miss Villager talked about The Witcher, the opening, the fight scene in the first episode where, Henry Cavill is fighting all of the bandits and then he kills the prince at the end. Yeah, that's just crazy sick. Amazing. Small use of magic in it that get just that right amount of fantasy in there, but it's really just about him being Superman and fucking people up. And I absolutely think that is an awesome, awesome, awesome scene. I agree. And okay, Byron Banks from our childhood is talking about Ninja Scroll, and I'm assuming what he's meaning is the fight in the woods with against the blind swordsman. Who, blind swordsmen always have an advantage because they can sort of see peripherally. But he ultimately gets defeated because he forgot that one like blade had already sort of flown off into the trees and it's stuck in the tree, and so he goes down for the killing swipe and it's blocked because there hasn't been any movement and he just forgot that it was there and then gets owned. And that is an amazingly, amazingly sick fight. All right. All right, so I'm going to go through some of these comments and see what you guys are talking about. All right, so Jay Baraz is saying the fight choreographers in Star Wars had issues with Liam because he actually knew how to sword fight. Yeah, no, that it would be a problem if he's like, no, you're actually wrong. This is better. Okay, so Seven Samurai is amazing. I honestly haven't seen it in such a long time, Jeremiah Fields. I can't speak to the fighting quality of it, though obviously it's an amazing movie. Okay, so Evgeny Friedland is actually bringing up something that was on my list, The Hunted, with Tommy Lee Jones, if we're talking about the same movie, is awesome. So Tommy Lee Jones plays like basically a ranger in fantasy series, and he trains all the special forces guys about how to like live in the forest, how to hunt, how to kill, da da da. And he's never killed anyone before. And his main protege, who like went out and became like the best killer for the CIA, basically goes rogue because he becomes disillusioned with all the horrible. Okay, I'm back. Becomes disillusioned with all the horrible things that he has to do and all the lies and stuff like that. So they end up going head to head at the end, and it probably has the most accurately depicted blood spatters and injuries coming like when they're literally stabbing here, and he hits him in his brachial plexus, and then like various things can't happen, or when he like slashes him across and it looks like a lot of blood spray, but it's not going to be anything major, and they really just sort of show that, and it shows a knife fighting exactly like the way it would be. It's brutal, and you never get into a knife fight not expecting to get cut. I've had several friends in the Marines that have sort of done extra things, and every single one of them says that the exact same thing. They're like, the very first lesson they ever hear from an instructor is, "You're going to get cut." That's what happens in a knife fight. So The Hunted is absolutely awesome. All right, all right, Mortal Kombat. All right, which one are we talking about? I will say when Sub-Zero froze blood in the last one, that was pretty cool. All right. All right. So yeah, Equilibrium is awesome. Sherlock and Moriarty for a mind fight is also great, and I love how like what determines it at the end is not who's smarter, it's who's crazier, which I feel like is just right up Richter's alley. So that's awesome. Hello to everybody here. Thank you for the weight loss comments. And oh yeah, the scene between Blade and Frost is fun. I wouldn't put it up on the top ones, but it is crazy cool and cool looking. All right. So we've gone through like most of the comments about what's happening. We have now I'm going to go through basically what I think are the top three sword fight scenes of all time. Oh my God, Sharon Totes, you're absolutely right. We have to talk about Monty Python, Quest for the Holy Grail, and the fight with the Black Knight. That is one of the greatest fight scenes of all sword fight scenes of all time. It still holds up. It's hilarious, and I also want a shrubbery. All right. So for me, the runner-up, third place is again the Musketeers. What I already talked about, where you have Tim Roth as perhaps one of the greatest villains of all time. It's an Eastern style kind of fighting scenes with D'Artagnan, and it's really amazing. So I absolutely recommend checking it out. Like there's so many Musketeers. Oh, and also notable mention Oliver Platt in one of the Musketeer movies, who he was one of the only people that actually I ever saw use a sword breaker to like snap somebody's like sword in half. And obviously he's Oliver Platt, so he plays comic relief. But it's totally worth seeing. It's very fun. Mm. All right, so the runner up, and I can't believe nobody mentioned this, the knife fight at the end of Raid 2. The Raid 2 is one of the most brutal, wonderful, like violent movies of all time. And at the end, you have the protagonist who's fighting with a curved blade, like it comes out like this and then hooks over almost like a sickle, and he's fighting another dude that way, and they sort of like go through like he's a cop and he's fighting like the main killer hench dude of the bad guy he's going against, and they sort of and they observe the forms. So when they first do, they come up and they cross hands like this, and they sort of go to town. It's such an insanely bloody, brutal, amazing fight scene, like in a industrial kitchen where they sort of incorporate everything there. It is absolutely worth watching. I think that you guys should check it. And the winner, I have no idea. Oh yeah, you're right, Jacob Grove. Gangs of Newark, New York is awesome. Perhaps the greatest like knife thrower in cinema. That's he's amazing. All right, so but the winner, and I can't believe nobody has talked about this, is Beatrice Kiddo in the fight with the Crazy 88s in Kill Bill 1. Where Uma Thurman came out of nowhere to crush it. I have no idea, but it was one of the Kill Bill 1 and 2 still hold up as some of the greatest movies of all time. But that fight with the Crazy 88s and the dude with the Kato mask, and even the joke in the second one where they're like, where Bill's talking, he's like, were there really 88 of them? He goes, nah, I think they just thought it sounded cool. is the greatest sword fight scene of all time. That is what I'm putting my nuts on. That is the stamp. I feel like it is absolutely amazing. The fight scene with Lucy Liu is obviously gorgeous, and they really sort of honor like that old um, sort of Japanese style, especially with the bamboo fountain that tips periodically. But in the Crazy 88, the fact that it goes through multiple sort of fight scenes, she owns the first several people that are there, and then has the amazing fight with Go-Go at the end. And it is often said by historians that ball and chain weapons do defeat swords, while stabs were seen to defeat ball and chain weapons a lot of the time. So like that was an amazing thing. And then the fight with just all of them at the end, including the culmination where it's the blue light room and she sees the last person standing as a kid, and then just whips his ass and goes, "This is what you get for fucking around with the Yakuza. Go, mother!" And she chops off his sword too. And that kid's clearly going to have erectile dysfunction for the rest of his life. An absolutely, absolutely amazing thing. And Danny Johnson, I have thought way too many times about, could you survive a 5-point death punch if you didn't walk 5 steps? I've thought about that my entire life. I think you can. Uh, so anyway, mm, that is the winner. That's what I'm coming down to. All right, some other things people didn't really talk about. Sean Connery, Highlander. I don't know. I mean, I thought that was pretty good. Even the third one, where you keep saying like you've already lost. Da da da. I don't know. All right. So I feel like this is a very successful Miss Village roundtable at first. Let me give you guys some updates and let me tell you what's really been going on with me. All right, so going in the way back machine. I started writing in 2015, right? I've always been a sci-fi fantasy fan. You guys are my tribe. We're pretty much the same. Like we've, spilled the same blood in the same mud, read the same stuff over and over, complained. I've definitely complained about why my favorite authors are coming out with stuff faster. Um, and I started writing and never thought anybody would ever read it. I knew nothing about publishing. I didn't even know that independent publishing was possible. Um, but I just sort of wrote it because I felt like I needed a balance in my life. I'd spent the last 15 years becoming a physician. I poured my blood, sweat, and tears in it. I'm an awesome physician. I'm very good at what I do, but it took a toll not sleeping for 10 years. It took a toll working 100 plus hours a week for 4 to 5 years in a row. Um, Alexa, stop. Um, and I felt like I needed a balance, right? So I went to therapy because I knew that I wanted something more out of life. And honestly, when I looked at my life, like I'm a doctor, I was young, got laid more than enough. I had good friends that would be there to pat me on the back or cook a barbecue or throw a punch at somebody in a bar fight. Like I didn't have anything to complain about, but I wasn't happy. So I went to therapy, and the guy Randy Randolphus, that's why he's so important in the land. Really sort of put me on a better path, and he's one of the most pivotal people that sort of led me to becoming a writer. So I started writing more as a psychological exercise, more to just like actualize something in my life and try to find some balance. Um, and I had luckily had just discovered LitRPG, which had just come to the U.S. Um, and there were only like 3 or 4 books for sale, more or less, maybe a couple more. There were some Russian ones, B-Rust, Vasily Manhenko, and then some others that were basically Google Translate. They were barely English. And I still read them because I just fell in love with LitRPG, like video games and sci-fi fantasy. Like, oh my god, I can only get so erect. It was awesome. And so I was like, well, I found this genre that I'm absolutely in love with, even though I've been a lifelong sci-fi fantasy fan. Like, let me give it a shot, and it took off. And I found you guys, right? I found you guys, and you found me, and then like there was no social media, so I built the Lit RPG group to sort of grow the genre, and it's grown larger than anything that I ever wanted it to be, and I sort of tied my success with it, and we grew. Like I said, at first the Lit RPG group was me and 50 dudes like joking around about stuff, and now we have like literally hundreds of authors, and we have thousands and thousands of fans all around the world, and it's amazing. Um, and so I say all to say, like I told you, I was not in a good place, and I'd gone to therapy because I knew I wanted more. And so I fueled the first 7 books, right, with just anger and rage and frustration and like, I'm like, and I'm like I said, I'm a very good doctor. I heal people, and I manage them, and I educate them, and my patients always had really good outcomes, and I could deal with anything that came through the door. I was the one they called when they couldn't handle stuff. But it still took a toll. I'm a human being, and the things that you see, and the things that some human beings are willing to do to others, and the just lack of sleep for a decade and a half, kind of took a toll. So like the books were salvation to me. I poured all of my heart into them, right? And it just flowed out. And that's why I was able to write my first book in 6 weeks, guys. It's not bullshit. From the time I pushed the first key through like 15 rewrites, barely sleeping, to publish on Amazon, that was 6 weeks. Um, and then there was just so much story to tell, right? And as I'm writing the first one, not to be like a certain sea captain-y author who wrote Shmame of Crohn's, I didn't want the ending to be in doubt. So before I even published the first book, I wrote several major arcs for where I wanted the land to go, thinking that every book and a half I get to a new arc. And I wrote the ending before I published the first book. Like it's all done. So for any of you guys that think that like I don't have like things to write, that literally couldn't be more wrong. But as you guys have seen, like things have slowed down, and it's for several reasons. One, book 7 is a brick. We broke Audible. For those of you guys who don't know, we literally broke Audible. A VP of Audible called me and said, "Please tell your fans to stop cussing out our customer service agents. We're doing our best." And we shut Audible.com down for 4 hours because so many Miss Villagers were downloading it at one time, and it was such a massive book, and it was awesome. Shout out to Nick Podell. Um, so like partly that was that. It took a year of my life. Like the first 6 books. So first book, 6 weeks. First 6 books, 14 months. And then the 7th book, which weighs 6 pounds, 5.8, close enough. That's what he said. Took a year of my life, 450,000 words. Longer than Patrick Rothfuss. I looked it up. I'm not petty at all. uh, and book 7, as you guys see, 7 numerology, was always meant to sort of be like a culmination of all the many threads, because I I don't like train car books where it's like, well, this leads to this. It's boring and it's not representative of real life. And I think that while I love dragons and elf boobs and fireballs and da da da, the real power of sci-fi fantasy, in my opinion, is our ability to create fantastic scenarios to help us better examine the human condition. We have to be able to connect because while it's good to have some random fluff, whatever, the books, the stories, the movies, the things that really resonate with us is when we can see ourselves, when it evokes something in us, right? So there has to be some realism in it to do that, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's what I basically just I did. I opened my heart and I poured myself onto it. And as I was going through these 7 books, they sold, and I got accolades, and I got into the top 10 on Amazon and Audible, and then the top 5, and then the top 3, and then number 1, and then customer favorite of the year. And as I got bigger, I got more fans, and I'm so thankful. You guys are what allowed this to happen. But if you guys have ever seen anybody that has a larger social following, uh, there's some shit that comes along with it too. There's entitlement. There's trolls. Oh my God. There's racism. There's just dickheads. There's people that say you love women too much, or you hate women, or you're too Christian, or you're not Christian enough. I mean, oh my God. One guy said chapter 37 was about me wanting to kill God because seven's a holy number, and I wanted to do it 3 times. Seriously, what the fuck? And against my will, I got wrapped up in, oh my God, the next one has to be even better. The next one has to be even better. The next one has to be even better. And then so we get to book 8. And honestly, I'm proud of that book. I always wanted book 8 to be the next start to a cycle of 7. Um, and I think I honestly, I'm happy with how the book come out, but I understand why it didn't really resonate. And for several reasons. One, I think it got the Matrix 2 effect. Matrix 1 was so mind blowing. Matrix 2 wasn't a great movie, but compared to the Matrix 1, it was shit. 8 compared to 7, I mean, it was a little shady. Like it wasn't really quite where it needed to be. And I made people wait for a year and a half. And I only showed Richter, which was always supposed to be part of the arc. But when you have fallen in love with Alma, and when you were missed hearing Crom talk about his exes, and when you love the banter with Scion and when you want to see how Hisako's going to slap Richter for being an idiot, and when you want to see the twins just do some nasty, nasty shit, I get how there were some blue balls. And so there's various reasons I think it wasn't quite well received. And honestly, on my side, again, I think I was trying to make it happen. When I write, I love hearing from people like, oh my God, I can tell how much you love writing the scene. Because it's like when you are enjoying it, when you are pouring your heart into it, it's like how you can hear someone smile on the other end of the phone. And I think I lost sight of that. I got so big, so fast, so much more than I ever imagined. Because again, I didn't think anybody was ever going to read my books. It was more of a psychological exercise. Um, and in the meantime, I'm dealing with just honestly amazing fans and some trolls and way too many asshole authors, and people that just feel entitled to my work and this and that and people this and why aren't you on this and this agent's reaching out and just all this, and it stopped being fun. It just stopped being fun, and I think that the part of responsibility I take for book 8 is not saying no. I felt like I had to do it. I had to give, and I had to give more, and it had to be bigger and better, and I had to do it. And I wasn't honoring the story. And so while 8 is still a book that I'm proud of, I don't think that my full heart was as in it as it could have been. Um, and I think that that was partially because of that, but also on my journey as a writer, like I said, this began as a psychological exercise. This began because I needed a balance in my life. I needed something that wasn't just blood and guts and dickhead physicians complaining about how they don't make enough money and insurance companies that are raping people in America and all this other stuff, right? And 100-hour work weeks. I needed something to balance. And so writing was almost like a therapy. It's like, oh, thank God I can get this out. Thank God I can find something to okay, can you guys not hear me? Okay. All right, I hope you can. Thank God I can find something that I can pour myself into, right? And so one of the problems actually is that around when okay was finishing and I was working on God's Eye, I was happy. I honestly just became a happier person. Like my friends would tell me, like, "Oh my God, I was so afraid of you because I was a scary dude, man. I was like House mixed with like Shaft. Like there were doctors who were like, oh, whatever. And I'm like, where are you? Stay there. I'm coming. You're going to take care of this patient. Nobody fucked with me. I was the best doctor that you never wanted to get on the wrong side of a bar fight with. I was really, I handled it, but like, it was just all of this angst and diesel fuel, right? I was like, what is it? Orlando Jones said it's like angry, get shit done. Like I resonate with that, right? Um, but I stopped being angry. I started being healthier. I started taking care of myself. I started being happier. I started not snapping at people. I started giving people grace. I started whatever. I basically switched my fuel from diesel to canola oil, and I couldn't figure out how to make the machine run. um, I really couldn't because it was just a different machine. And I literally stopped for a little while, and I was like, maybe I should just let go of all this personal growth and just fucking get back to the anger because that puts some stuff out, right? That cranks it. That makes it rough and raw. Um, and I decided not to, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to switch to have the joy and the violence and the human condition and the whatever when it wasn't just something I was having to like pour out of me and squeeze onto the page, right? Um, and I didn't even know where to go for help. Um, but I was like, I know that I don't want to go back to that guy. So I decided to take some time and figure it out. And I read books and I listened to music and I started losing weight and I started reconnecting people. I turned 40 and I tried, I came up with three things. I didn't have an existential crisis. I think I basically had that at 33 when I was like in positions. You know, when you're working 120 hours a week, that crisis is going to come. So I just took some time for myself and I hit 40 and I came up with three things that I wanted my 40s to be about. Um, I believe that line in Contact where she's like, why did you reach out to us as human beings, to the alien? And he says, in billions of years, in all of our searching and all of our wanderings, the only thing that we found to make the emptiness bearable is each other. And I believe that. I also believe hell can be other people, but let's not talk about that. Let's keep it bright. I believe that the thing that makes this worthwhile is us and connecting with other people. So the first thing I wanted out of my 40s is I wanted to deepen my connection with worthwhile people that I valued. I want them to know they were valued. I want to get to know them better and potentially maybe even make a couple new connections. So that was goal number one. Goal number two, I wanted to become a more awesome version of myself. Proud of my writing. I want to be a better writer. I make the perfect margarita, as you guys know. I want to make the perfect couple other things. I'm teaching myself French right now. The guitar is something that I'm going to pick up. There's been one thing in my house since I was a child. Always wanted to play, never did. I'm gonna try that. Learn how to cook. Oh, cooking. I can honestly say I have ranked up from novice to initiating cooking. I have an instinct about it now. And there's this amazing Matthew Broderick movie where he just kind of plays this like, man, the guy that doesn't get laid kind of guy. But he's an amazing cook. And the woman comes in one day and she's just tearful and we're crying and whatever. And he's just like, oh, I'm sorry. And he just starts talking to her and he makes her some food and she goes, ah, this is actually really good. It's why I got into massage before. I think that despite the fact that I am a wordsmith, there's sometimes that word doesn't do it. Sometimes you need touch, sometimes you need sense, sometimes you need taste. I like the connection that I get with people in a different way through cooking. So like something like that. So that was number two. Number one, deepen my connections with worthwhile people, maybe making a couple new ones. Number two, become a more awesome version of myself. Number three, I want abs on a boat, just because I think that's really fucking hot. Don't want to own a boat. Just want the abs of the boat. Open shirt, maybe got a dick picking. Yeah, Cuban drug lord style. So those are the three things that I want for you. So anyway, meandering back, like I said, the first seven books, part of eight, were fueled by like frustration, anger, discontent. There's things that I need to get out of me. And then I became happy. And I didn't know how to fuel the old machine with that. So I took my time and I read books. I read a lot of books, and I called people that I loved, and I told them that I loved them. And I tried to reconnect with people, and sometimes it was a shit show. Honestly, we do not belong in one another's lives. But so many more times, people were like, "I didn't. there was something that I was feeling. I thought I was the only one." Or, "Do you remember when such and such? Something that I forgot. This amazing memory that they brought back." Um, and I'm discovering new parts of the world, and I'm discovering new parts of myself as I do that. I think the world that we exist in is a mirror, and if you're always in the same part of the world with the same people, you're only ever seeing the same image. You're never seeing yourself from another angle. If you want to be more, if you want more out of your life, you have to give more to your life. I hate how hallmarky that sounds, but I honestly believe that. Um, you want to be more excited? Listen to a new type of music. You want to think something new? Talk to somebody new that doesn't think the same thing as you. We're the only thing that makes the emptiness bearable. Um, and through doing that, through finding resonance, through not worrying about the outcome, worrying about people complaining, worrying about the fact that they're like, oh, he's given up on the series, despite the fact that I put out 9 books in less years than that. Um, when you stop, you let that go, right? Well, then the machine works again, right? It's not that there was ever an issue with the creativity. It's not that there was ever an issue with the where it was going to go. There was an issue with the will. Um, I suppose you'd call it writer's block, but I've always thought writer's block is when you didn't know where to go. I wrote the ending. I have literally 100 pages of just plot lines for various series. It was that I wanted it to feel like I was pouring my emotions into the page. I wanted this to be a covenant, something sacred that I'm sharing with you. I didn't want it to just feel like a job, which is what it was starting to feel like. And I didn't want it to feel like I was chasing your approval or success or anything like that. I wanted it to be something that at the end of my life I was proud of, and that's what happened. By without any specific design, without any specific, like, well, this is the one to doing it. Um, I just leaned into positive things in my life, and I leaned into figuring out and being a better, awesome version of myself. And then it flowed again, and it feels like it used to. It feels like pure creation and joy and excitement. And it's the last thing that I do when I go to sleep. And when I wake up, well, I brush my teeth because I hate that cat shit in my mouth taste. But then I come right back to the laptop and do that. And that's why I'm comfortable sharing the first chapter of OmniMage, and that's why I'm going to be putting OmniMage out now, and that's why there's been a gap between the books. Not that I couldn't, but for me, it has to feel a certain way. Now, some people may be listening and they don't give a shit. I get it. You don't necessarily know me. You want me to put out. I felt like that. And for those of you that think that I'm not paying attention when you say like, oh, well, where's the book though? I am. I'm very much responding to you by not saying go fuck yourself in your room. So you're welcome. Uh, but for everybody else, uh, yeah, like like there's so much story to tell, and so much story that I'm excited to tell, and now it's flowing again, and now it feels the right way when it flows, and so that's sort of what's happening, and that's where it's coming from. So I will be putting OmniMage out. Though I'm still toying with the title. Uh, Probably in the next month or two, and then book 9 will come after that, and I will be doing revamp versions of the books as I'm going through them. I'll be rediscovering the land in an intrinsic and deep way again, and doing very fun things while we do it. A lot of artwork and even like a couple original songs. But that's what's been going on, and I wanted you guys to know. And you might be asking, why am I telling you now? Because I have been in a really good place for a while, and the reason I'm telling you today all of this and not before is for a very simple reason. Because I feel like as much as you love someone, you love them more when they give you shit. And so I'm giving you chapter 1 of OmniMatch today. So I feel like this was the right day to tell you. Um, because who doesn't like free t-shirts? And again, I've been where you are. I'm I'm a true fan of fantasy, sci-fi. I love the stories. I love them as much as I love anything. Um, you are my tribe, and so I get it. And even the dickheads among you, you're okay too. But that's what's been going on. It really, really is. So, with all that being said, I'm going to bring the first Miss Village Roundtable to a close. You're going to be seeing a lot more of me like you did before. And we're going to be doing these roundtables at least twice a month. And every time I do, we'll be releasing more chapters on Patreon. And when there's enough chapters up there, I'll be releasing it for the rest of you guys, maybe on like a 1 or 2 month lag. Um, and yeah, like I'm gonna. It feels good. It feels right, and I'm so excited for you guys to see. Ugh, the blood, sweat, and tears that I've gone through um, to further expand this world, to fill in the gaps for kind of where I always wanted to go. Uh, and I want to say thank you. I said it to start, but I'll never say it enough. This is only possible because of you. I am so appreciative for my fans. I am so appreciative for the Miss Village. I'm appreciative for how you guys are there for each other, um, and how you helped me become a better person, quite literally. So I guess that's it for today. We will be doing another roundtable soon. It will be another fun topic. And once I get you guys nice and relaxed with those, maybe we'll get into a couple other topics. Nothing done crazy. Something as simple but potentially charged as like, can man and woman really be friends? How does it work? How do you do it? What do you get out of it? I absolutely think they can. Um, so I'm gonna go. Anybody that's having a hard time, which I sadly think is probably a lot of people, you're not alone. You're not the only ones that ever felt that way, and it's okay if you. It's okay. It's okay if you're not perfect, or if you stumble, or if you make a mistake. Wise old man said that too late is what death is for. All right. So, in addition to other updates and stuff, my lovely assistant Geneva will do that. But I wanted to have a fellowship with you guys. I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate you. You're amazing. Thank you. And so, without further ado, peace, love, Perfect Margarita.